Okay, let's get back to our thought experiment. This thought experiment entails raising government spending, so we're going to have higher G. And to understand the effects of this, we need to see that there are really two things going on. One is to remember that consumption plus government spending equals output. And this is the goods market clearing condition. But this left-hand side has the interpretation as demand for goods, and the right-hand side has the interpretation of supply of goods. So an increase in government spending is going to increase the demand for goods. But because we're taking this general equilibrium perspective, higher government spending has to be financed. So that is going to mean that lump sum taxes rise dollar for dollar with the increase in government spending. Of course, higher taxes reduce the consumer's income because consumption and leisure are normal goods. That's going to reduce their demand for consumption and leisure. Reduced demand for leisure means that the supply of labor increases, so labor supply is going to shift out and to the right, and that drives down wages. But of course, it also increases the number of hours worked, which then, through the production function, increases output. But government spending itself has had no effect on the position of the production function. So higher labor and higher output implies that the marginal product of labor falls. And because we know that the wage equals the marginal product, we have that the wage will end up falling in equilibrium. Now, what happens to private consumption? Well, the effect on private consumption is going to depend on how much output rises. Remember, this baby's going up relative to the increase in government spending. And it's going to turn out that in this model, it's always the case that output will not rise by as much as government spending. And therefore, higher government purchases are always going to do what's called crowding out. Will always crowd out private consumption. In terms of the labor market, what is going on, remember, is that taxes have gone up. That means that the consumer's income, PR minus T, falls, and that reduces demand for leisure. And a reduced demand for leisure amounts to a rightward outward shift in the supply of labor. So how does equilibrium in the labor market get reestablished? Well, at the original wage, W1, there's now going to be an excess supply. This is excess supply of labor of that amount. When there's an excess supply, firms are going to start to bid down the wage. As the wage falls, workers are going to slide down this new supply function, and this adjustment process continues until the wage has fallen enough so that labor supply equals labor demand. But in the process of the falling wage, we see that employment or hours worked has increased. As I said, there's no effect on the position of the production function. So the way that you get more output from more hours worked is that firms just slide up this fixed production function. And what is happening is, again, remember that equilibrium is going to require that the marginal product equal the wage. So as output rises, the marginal product is falling, and that then is consistent with having the wage fall in equilibrium. So I want to emphasize that here we're talking about what happens to the wage in equilibrium. Every individual firm is still behaving competitively, taking that wage as given, but they are seeing that in the market as a whole, the wage is starting to fall. And that's what induces this slide up along this production function. This is a really simple model of government spending. So government increases the demand for goods. That increase in government consumption does nothing to raise productivity. So this is not government spending on highways or infrastructure, education. It doesn't do anything to complement private consumption. So the government's not providing a legal system or police and fire protection. In a different kind of model where government spending is doing something more interesting, there are certain kinds of government spending that would actually also increase the demand for labor. But the message that I want you to take from this is, while this model is useful in some sense for understanding at least some aspect of what government spending does in the economy, you need to be cautious in making predictions about what actual policy would do.